One of the most valuable traits that I adopted was due to the mindset letting the chips fall as they may. And what I mean by that is something which I was speaking to a client recently, excuse me. And when I was speaking to him, I realized that maybe part of the reason why dating, social life, just building professional connections, so everything in the social realm, something I call social ecology, there was something that just wasn't fully clicking. He had a very mature energy, very grounded energy, very relaxed energy, also a very confident energy. But there was something that wasn't clicking, and what it was a lack of the mindset, which I had actually forgotten that I'd internalized, which is letting the chips fall as they may. Now, this came in conjunction with something called the path of most resistance, which is like a masculine polarity kind of training thing, which that can also be used in this therapeutic showing up work, where you have the internal work, but you also have to show up externally and actually like push through adversity. Originally got it from one of my mentors, Pierre. And what came with that is letting the chips fall as they may. Realizing that when you're being polarizing, when you're being a bit more assertive, when you're being a bit more confident, people are like, you are going to ruffle a few more feathers. That's like part of the game. That's part of what you have to do. You have to ruffle some feathers, you know? In order to figure out like who it is that's in your flock, you have to ruffle some feathers, like some feathers, excuse me. Now, my blind spot was that the ruffling of feathers, it comes naturally. The letting chips fall as they may, it comes naturally. The being polarizing is natural. It's not something you have to seek out. It's not something that you have to like really dig into. As you can tell, what that means is what I used to do is I used to really like go for it. I used to be extra edgy because I thought it was cool. I thought it was attractive. I thought it was whatever, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. And obviously, I have a lot of compassion for myself now. I don't hold it against myself, but I caused myself a lot of unnecessary suffering, a lot of unnecessary pain from doing that. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about path of most resistance, when we're talking about adopting the mindset, letting the chips fall as they may, when it comes to developing confidence, when it comes to developing just groundedness and assertiveness and just unflappableness in social ecology, in the ecology of socializing, whether that's dating, professional relationships, personal friendships, anything like that. And with this client that I was working with, we'll call him James, one of the big homeworks that I've given him, and he's still working on and he's still going through it, is adopting that mindset. So it's actually more of a conscious stuff. So we've done a lot of unconscious rewiring, and that stuff is great and healing, and it's very transformative. But you still need in your with your mentor, with your practice, with whatever you're doing right now, is a showing up practice, actually getting out there and getting your hands dirty, right? For him, what that looks like is going into social interactions that scare him. And one of those was actually, so he's living in like a co-working place, right? Like that's quite popular in like the kind of digital nomad hubs. You know, he used to be in tech and now he's exited, and now he's a founder and he's building his own business, like really grinding. And that was another thing that really we worked on as well, which is getting that more agentive, that more active part of himself, that go-getting part, getting that online as well, right? But what was happening is, you know, he's got some friends there. You know, it's a co-living space. Everyone's kind of really friendly. Everyone's grinding together. Everyone's grinding together. Excuse me. Everyone's building together. But there was one guy that when he got drunk, and it happened a few times, and also the other people in the co-living place also confirmed it with James. And James, you know, because we've been working on stuff for a while, he's very well liked. Like I said, he doesn't have like a on the surface problem in social ecology and socializing. It's just there's a few kind of blocks around certain conflict things and certain dating stuff, which he's working through now, and we're going to do some more targeted work together. But with this guy, I don't know this guy's name, so I won't say it. But this guy, whenever they would be in social situations, he would get like a little bit triggered at James and get like passive aggressive or even kind of aggressive aggressive and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or you always, or I think the line was, you always talk a load of shit and all that kind of stuff. Now the path of most resistance is actually going into that. You can hold the other person with compassion. You can hold the other person with love, and that stuff is amazing, and it's good for you first and foremost. But there still needs to be an activeness in the world. There still needs to be a boundary setting. There still needs to be pushing into resistance. Now, James has a lot of resources. He's very mature, But they just has some sticking points around like actually conflict resolution and conflict management, handling aggression, handling all of that kind of more combative elements. And this guy, you know, is a bigger dude. You know, I mean, James is a tall guy as well, but you know, there's a bit of physicality there as well for somebody who was, you know, very resourceful internally, but necessarily James doesn't have the most experience when it comes to, you know, maybe physical altercations. And I said to James, you already know what to do. We've talked through this. We've got rid of the unconscious issues. You have to put him for a chat. And you have to go into that and say, what is it that you mean? Now, when James did this, he told me he was feeling nervous. He was feeling resistance. But when he did this, the other guy melted instantly. And it's not in terms of like dominance, submission, any of that nonsense, right? What I mean is he owned up to it. He stood up to it. He said, yeah, I was wrong to say that. And he apologized profusely. And James obviously has, like, whenever we have positive social feedback, that's one of the strongest drugs that you can take. He was in an amazing state. He messaged me. He was like, oh, I went great, all that kind of stuff. And I realized that me holding myself back from that was not just bad for me, but it was bad for him. Gave him, because by stepping into that, it gave the other person a chance to resolve conflict, to strengthen that bond. Conflict is always, in some sense, it can always breed extra intimacy between two people. Now, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because what I told James before this is you have to have the mindset, you have to let the chips fall as they may. You have to let this guy get pissed off if he gets pissed off. It's not your job to manage somebody else's emotions. It's not your job to manage anyone else's responsibilities. It's not your job to manage their internal world, okay? What it is your job is to manage your internal world and know when it's your internal is saying, I have to express this. This has to set, you have to set a boundary here. Externally, we have to catch up. And that's what James did. So the letting the chips fall as they may, it takes off so much responsibility, so much pressure to perform, so much pressure for an ideal outcome, so much pressure on ourselves to act a certain way. And when you just let the chips fall as they may, this naturally develops a very grounded, direct, and strong energy. Even if you feel nervous, even if you feel a bit vulnerable like James was feeling, okay? And from my own journey, I can't tell you how many times I felt vulnerable, I felt scared in social situations and all that kind of stuff. It didn't come naturally to me necessarily, okay? That's fine, because it doesn't matter. Because what people will see is that you're actually taking the path of courage, you're taking the path of strength. And you're not somebody who's going to let their emotions get in the way of what they want. And that you're not the type of person to let emotions get in the way of you saying how you want to be treated. And that all comes from the mindset of letting the chips fall as they may.